Now, I know you guys are like kind of into Dark Souls, and I'm obviously the mega fan, and so I wanted to bring you guys in just so I could just squeal about it for hours. That's a lie. I haven't played Dark Souls 2 at all, and I haven't played any of the DLCs, but you guys are nuts about it. Everybody in the opposite loves it but me. I have some kind of sickness that hopefully Bloodborne will fix. Part 2 of 3 seemed pretty rad. Seemed better than Part 1. Do you think that's kind of unanimous across most review scores?
I don't think it's unanimous. I definitely saw reviews and other opinions that were like, no, Part 1. Ryan Stevens commented on my review, and he likes Part 1 better. And I really think it's because they sort of offer different things. It depends on what is most important to you in Dark Souls.
Which is smart for expansion content, right? To kind of dabble in different ingredients.
But that being said, I feel like people are less captivated by the Dark Souls 2 DLC than they were the Dark Souls 1 DLC, and I've been trying to theorize why that is. Maybe it's just like people like Dark Souls 2 less. Maybe they don't like it being broken up into different pieces. And that was something I was worried about. I was like, oh no, they're splitting it up into different pieces. It's gonna feel cheap. It's gonna feel incomplete. It's not gonna be what I want. But I've been very impressed by both.
And Dark Souls 1 just had the one big expansion.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Artorias of the Abyss.
Yeah.
And anytime someone mentions it, you do kind of get that response. Like it's so good.
The best.
Yeah. It is.
How would you say it looks like these 3 pieces are gonna add up to what the size of what that was? Or do you think we're possibly getting more content?
I really hope that they reward you for finishing all 3 and unlocking, and like maybe it'll be part of 3, but if you finish all 3, it'll unlock an additional.
But it's Dark Souls.
area.
The win is the reward, isn't it? It's the journey. It's not the getting there.
Right.
Right. Right.
Right.
That's what I'm told.
I think kind of maybe what you're saying though is in the Dark Souls 1 DLC, Artorias of the Abyss, spoilers. That you fight this wolf in the Dark Souls DLC, and it's a really great fight because he's holding this giant sword in his mouth, and it's usually a very hard fight for people the first time they do it. And then at the DLC, you can summon the dog with you into battle, and it's just kind of like this cool moment where you're like, oh my god, did that just happen? And then you fight Artorias in the Artorias of the Abyss, and you've heard about him in Dark Souls. He seemed like a very prominent character. You're like, wait, why am I fighting? What's going on? And I feel like with both pieces of the DLC, they definitely do tie back into the main game, and there are things that you can uncover about the world of Dark Souls 2, but it's not as impactful as Summoning Stiff. There hasn't been like that sort of payoff, which is something that I guess I would kind of like. I don't know if that's
the
what
only
you're
thing
about.
was getting the crown in the first one. You could revisit Vendrick and relive a memory that, had a little bit of lore, but nothing major.
Yeah.
And then in this one, they had a nod to Artorias. You could go down this optional path that was really hard to get down to. There's curses everywhere, really brutal area, and you pick up Artorias' sword. It's not called that, but it's the exact same design, and it has the exact same stats as his sword from the first game. So it was just a little nod to that.
So you're saying Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are different flavors of what makes up Dark Souls 2. Is it a 50-50 split, or do you think there's another kind of play style or another kind of taste of Dark Souls that they could experiment with in Part 3? What's left?
Yeah, because 1 was very puzzle-focused, lowering and raising
Elevators
everything.
and whatnot, and switches.
People have likened the Part 1 of the DLC to like a Zelda sort of vibe, where your environment is just as much of an obstacle as the enemies itself. And I would argue that the enemies in Part 1 are kind of uninteresting for a lot of it.
Oh, no way. The ghosts where you had to destroy their armor to put them back. Those guys are still my favorite enemies in Dark Souls.
The DLC.
In the DLC, yeah.
I liked the enemies in Part 2, I think, but more. They just had more to them.
The little extremis Marvel exploding guys were really cool. But I still think the ghosts were really creative. Having to go find their armor. They're invincible until then. You had to go find their cursed armor and smash it.
So I don't know how I did this, because I actually could kill them when they were ghosts. Like, I didn't smash all the armor, and I still killed them.
I was playing your game, and you could do that.
Yeah, I could do that.
So weird.
So if...
Oh, magic. Magic
But
says Ian.
yeah.
I didn't have. I wasn't a
magic.
magic. It wasn't a magic weapon. It was a lightning weapon. I don't know if that's. Oh,
It's magically
so like to me, it would have been way cooler because
Yeah.
of course, when you're playing the DLC, you probably have weapons that are upgraded with some sort of like fire or lightning, whatever it is. To me, it would have been way cooler if the only way where you can kill these guys is.
It was the only way for me.
Okay,
I
that would
just
have been
had
far
I
more
had a raw
memorable.
halberd, just
for me.
no magic or anything on it. And I was just whiffing. Like, I can't kill them.
But-
They're coming up from the floors and grabbing me.
As far as like where the third part could go, I think something that I would like and something that Artorias of the Abyss did really well is both of these DLCs. You're inside most of the time, and you're kind of in a dungeon, and both of these dungeons have different flavors. What I liked about Artorias of the Abyss is you kind of go out into that forest, and it has its own vibe. I would like an expansive outdoor area where you're not falling through corridors anymore. Like you just get into these big battles. I'm sort of just fantasizing right now.
Edmar, me
but-
too. No, take that, but make it like an epic, large-scale boss battle. We haven't had any large-scale Warzone boss battles. Dragons coming in,
Well-
giants walking, catapults launching. Just take it to the extreme.
Dark Souls Warriors.
Yeah.
I can see it announced now.
Oh, don't.
No.
If they announced a Dynasty Warriors game with a Dark Souls skin, I think I would. No.
But scaling it back a little, for real, just really bring it home on the boss fights, because that's one of the most important things in Dark Souls.
I think in
The
both
last
parts,
DLC had one of the greatest boss fights I've ever played in Dark Souls, which was an optional boss called Sir Alone.
it was amazing.
But it was very reminiscent of Artorias.
Of the,
so,
yeah.
so I really wanted to just do something really creative, something we've never seen with a boss before. That would be my
I think
wish.
that is a complaint that is with both DLCs is one of the bosses you fight a dragon in the first DLC, and then you fight somebody that's kind of similar to the last boss, and then with two of the bosses in the second DLC, it's like one of them is literally the smelter
Yeah.
demon again. It's just the same boss fight again.
Except he's
which is
blue instead of
Instead
red.
he's magic instead of fire. It's ridiculous. And then the other one, you're kind of like, this was cool. It's kind of like the Pursuer. It's kind of like the Penetrator from Demon Souls. It's kind of like whatever. So I guess for part 3, I totally agree with you. I want a boss fight where it's like,
Never
whoa,
seen this before.
I
yeah.
don't know how to handle this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be something that I think would really bring it home with the finale.
And we do know from the teaser that it's in the snow. There's a lot of snow and catwalks and little thin bridges, like Temple of Doom style. So
Right.
that's all we really know.
That's a little weird to me because in the second DLC, there's white ash everywhere, and it is ash, but it looks like snow. So there were times where I feel like I'm in a snowy environment, even though there's like fire in the background or everything, because the enemies use it to hide. So I hope they don't do the same thing again.
Yeah.
When are we
Just like
getting
on
that?
this
Part 3.
Next month. This month.
This month,
This
the
month.
26th, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
September 26th. So like 2 or 3 weeks.
And you're excited.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm ready to
Absolutely.
finish it.
I honestly went in with a very cynical attitude, and as of right now, I could not be more excited for part 3.
Okay, so I'm a Dark Souls player. I beat the third thing. I get cool loot in the third thing. What do I do? Can I take that loot back to original Dark Souls areas? Like,
Yeah.
what kind of replayability is offered to me after finishing the game and all of this extra content?
So the way that it's been structured in parts 1 and 2 is unless you are consulting the internet, it is very, if you're someone that just kind of goes forward and you don't think about every path, or you don't like make a mental note like, oh hey, this is locked. If I get a key, maybe I should come back and reopen it. It is very easy to miss the bosses, especially in the second DLC. So I would argue that the replayability is you go back and you find everything. Like there are just rooms you cannot get into that have like spells, brand new spells, or new equipment like Artorias' sword. The replayability is going back and finding everything, because you'll likely encounter the main thread, the main boss, before you finish everything up.
Any more hype?
No, I'm
Huber, you're done?
For as much as I love Dark Souls, I fear it as well. Each time these DLCs have come out, I've been so excited and also so scared, because I always just have that doubt of, man, what if I just can't beat this?
I told
What
him,
if I just can't get through it? Like, it's so intense. Oh, it's so much pressure, so much stress, but so much fun as well.
He ended up thinking it was actually easier, but I told him
Yeah.
I thought the second part
God, he was scared.
was harder, and like all of the emotion just drained out of his face. He was like, what am I gonna do it?
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm not going to play it, but I appreciate you guys suffering and playing it.
We're all
and chatting
praying for
about it, so.
February.
for
Bloodborne.
for Bloodborne. Hell
That's-
yeah. Which I am going to play, which is a totally different conversation we'll get into later.
Yeah.
We're gonna go
But,
Shovel Knight style on you. We're gonna force you to play it.
Thanks, chaps.
10 hours minimum.
Thank you.